What's up guys, it's Mega giving you another deck Finger Evolution. Today guys, I'm honouring a request, and that is a Gimmick Puppet deck. However, there was a little bit of a twist because I found that Gimmick Puppets on their own just weren't a very good deck. Like, they were either too bricky, they were just too slow. It was just kind of like that. So I decided what other dark machines the Orcust kind of fit in the art, and that is Orcust. So I actually combined Puppets with Orcust. It actually runs pretty well because both of them kind of rely on the graveyard. And they both kind of don't have that lockdown, like the restrictions, because Orcust, their restrictions is you can only play darks. Gimmick Puppets don't care, and a lot of the Gimmick Puppets are either just Xyzers, but the Orcust cards still do Xyzers, so it's not that pretty much of a deal. If you're struggling to make this deck, guys, or any deck shown so far, check out the card holder. Whether tarot card is in this game or not, tell you where to find it, like campaign, challenge mode, or any of the card packs that is in the description down below. And with that, guys, let's get into the video. Okay guys, this is a 41 card deck. Reason why, I just couldn't think of what other cards to take out, and I needed the card we'll get into in a bit, and I needed it 3 copies, otherwise I'd just struggle so much. So starting us off is 1 copy of Armageddon Knight. We're not running Ash Blossom because I just can't simply fit it in the deck, sadly. So with Armageddon Knight, he's like a monster version of Foolish Burial, because all of our monsters other than Nibiru are dark attribute, so it's like a Foolish Burial for all of your monsters pretty much, and his effect isn't a once per turn. And then we have that 1 copy of Dark Grepher. He's like a different version of Armageddon Knight. They're both limited to 1, that's why I'm running 1 of each. So for Dark Grepher, if you discard a level 5 or higher dark monster, a lot of your Gimmick Puppets are level 5 or higher, and so are all your Orcust, you can special summon this bad boy. And then you can discard any dark monster from your hand to send another dark from your deck to the graveyard. So, for instance, if you sent, I don't know, Nightmares, Orcust Nightmare to summon out this card. Say for instance you have a Gimmick Puppet in your hand, you could just discard the Gimmick Puppet and send another card to the grave. It just sets up the graveyard so beautifully. And then on some Gimmick Puppets cards, I've got 3 copies of, Biscuit Doll. She's like the hand version of Drury Doll. So for her, you can discard any Gimmick Puppet you want, including herself, to special summon her to the field, which is actually pretty nice, because again it's a free summon, level 8, and she doesn't have a restriction, so that means she can go into any of our rank 8 monsters, unlike Druidol that can only go into a Gimmick Puppet. So she's actually a very good generic monster to go into to help us continue for our plays. And then 2 copies of Druidol. If this card is in the graveyard, you can banish another Gimmick Puppet, special summon her from the grave. That effect is a once per turn, please, by the way, so please use it wisely. And also, if you did try to Xyz summon with her, it has to be a Gimmick Puppet monster, so please bear that in mind. It's the only one that has an Xyz restriction on it. So with her, I like to, if I'm not going, like if I know I can't go into a Druid or into an Xyz, because obviously I don't want to limit myself to just a Gimmick Puppet Xyz, I would normally use Druidol to link summon, to link climb, go into some very, very powerful links and just go off from there, because again it's a free summon from the graveyard. 2 copies of Humpty Dumpty, simply because Humpty Dumpty, when it's normal or special summoned, you can special summon any Gimmick Puppet from your hand including itself. Again, really great. Just there, just to help you get more monsters on the field, because again, if you want to, you can either go into like a Link 2 play, or if you have like more plays, you can just extend your plays even further. 2 copies of Magnet Doll. This card's kind of like a Cyber Dragon effect, where should your opponent control a monster, you can special summon this card from your hand if you control a Gimmick Puppet, which is actually a nice effect because it's not a once per turn as well, and it doesn't have a restriction, and also it's level 8. So this Biscuit Doll can make any one of your rank 8s. It's not restricted to just a Gimmick Puppet monster. And again, it's not once per turn. So for instance, if you summoned like Gimmick Puppet Humpty Dumpty to summon out Drury Doll, and you've got 2 of these Magnet Dolls in your hand, you could just summon both of them onto the field straight away if you really want to. We've got 2 copies of Scissor Hands. If this bad boy is normal summoned, you can send a Gimmick Puppet from your deck to the grave. Absolute great to set up your Drury Doll, and also, like I say, when you link summon with your monsters, they go to the grave. Ideal to resurrect with Drury Doll. Then we've got that one copy of Terror Baby. If this card, again, is normal summoned, you can target a Gimmick puppet in your grave and special summon it, which is actually pretty nice. It also has a graveyard effect where I don't particularly use all that option, or that well, if I'm being honest, where you can banish a card from you, or you can banish it from your grave. Your opponent cannot activate cards in response to a Gimmick puppet effect, basically, which is kind of useless in a way, but it's there nevertheless. And we have got a lot of cards that require to be normal summoned, so I'm running like 2s and 1s of them, and it always means you've got some form of play off a normal summon, really. Then we've got onto some other cards. We've got one copy of Gimmick Orochi. Gimmick, guys, doesn't care if it's in your hand or in the graveyard, so it's ideal fodder for trading because it's a level 8 monster. You can draw 2 cards. Gimmick's effect is if it's in your hand or grave. A quick effect, you can special summon it by banishing the top 8 cards of your deck, which is kind of a steep cost, but in order to get an extra play out, or like to push for damage, or even to defend yourself, Gimmick can do it. He also has another effect, guys, where you can banish the top 3 cards of your deck face down, or top 3 cards of your extra deck face down, and then destroy one face up monster on the field, which is actually nice. It just means that you can't use one effect, you can't use both effects in a single turn, so please be mindful which one of those effects you're going to trigger. It's just great for a combo extender and on all the shenanigans. And then I'm running 3 copies of Nibiru, simply because upon playing this deck in ranked, guys, I literally went up against every literally combo deck under the sun. Literally every single one I was going up against was summoning 5 to 10 monsters every single duel, and I wasn't running Nibiru, and I was like, you know what? I'm taking out the hand traps I did originally have, and I'm adding Nibiru, and it just made the deck 10 times better, because if you go in second, because realistically you'll like to go first, especially with the Galatea plays in the control, but if you go in second and you manage to get that Nibiru, you can just shut down a lot of opponents, because 9 times out of 10 they will summon a lot of monsters. So Nibiru, guys, if your opponent just normal or special summons 5 times in a turn, so if they just normal summon 5, or so if they just summon 5 times in their turn, you can tribute all monsters on the field, including your own, special summon Nibiru to your side of the field. Then you summon a token to your opponent's side of the field, whose attack and defense is combined to the monster that will tribute. So please bear in mind, if the defense points of the monsters you're tributing do over 3,000, you ain't getting over that token, and that token can near enough destroy your Nibiru. So that's the only downside, but Nibiru can be there just to destroy a lot of opponents' boards. And then we're on some Orcust cards, guys. I've got two of all of them just to keep it so you can still see them, but it doesn't clog the deck too much. So I've got 2 copies of Brass Bombard. If this all of the Orcusts have an effect that activate in the graveyard by banishing them. So Brass Bombard, if you can banish it from play to special summon an Orcust monster from your hand, apart from itself. So you can special summon Skeleton or Nightmare with Brass Bombard, and it's actually a nice monster because, again, we are running a Lone Link Rebo. So for instance, if you have this card, you can link it away into Link Rebo. It's in the graveyard. If you have that other Orcust in your hand, boom, can just banish it, summon it to the field, instant link 2, guys. Then we've got 2 copies of Skeleton. So Skeleton, guys, if this card is banished, or you can banish this card from your grave to special summon an Orcust monster except itself from your graveyard. That does include Dingisu and Galatea because they have Orcust in their name. So really great. Also there for another combo extender, another special summon should you need it. Finally, 2 copies of Orcust Nightmare. For this bad boy, you can banish it from your grave, target 1 monster on the field. Send a dark monster or dark machine from your deck to the grave, and if you do, it'll gain the monster you targeted will gain 100 attack for each of the discarded monster's levels. So for instance, we'll choose Scissor Arms. If you send Gimmick Orochi to the grave, it will gain 800 attack points because Gimmick is a level 8 monster. And it's just there because, again, if you send a World Wand, you have a nice little combo between these 2, and it's just there to get another monster in the grave while powering up your monsters on the field. And as for World Wand, guys, its effect is if it's sent to the graveyard and you have another World Legacy monster, basically another copy of World Wand in your hand, you can special summon it, which is a pretty nice, sweet effect. Its graveyard effect is you can banish it from your grave to special summon an Orcust monster from your that is banished. So for instance, if you banish Nightmare Orcust to send World Wand to the grave, you're going to give a monster 800 attack points, which is a nice little boost. Then you can just banish World Wand from the grave to re-summon out Nightmare. Then you've got 3 monsters on the field, then you could just use that Nightmare for link summoning or like do damage or exceed whatever with it, and just get back into the graveyard, and then it's just set up for the next turn. On to some magic cards, guys. We're holding 2 copies of Lure of Darkness simply because all your monsters apart from Nibiru are going to be dark monsters, and some monsters, like again with the Orcust, like to be banished, so it's not really a problem. We've got 2 copies of Caught by the Grave. I decided to keep it at 2 because I just didn't have the space for 3. This bad boy is great against hand traps. So a lot of hand traps like Ash Blossom, Effect Veiler, Ghost Ogre, that kind of thing, upon using their effects, they go to the graveyard. Caught by the Grave, you target one monster that's in your opponent's graveyard, remove it from play, and ban it and negate its effect. So it kind of stops hand traps. And also the great thing about it is, should your opponent have like cards in the grave, like they Foolish Burial, so they want a card in the grave, or if they're going to like play Monster Reborn or an archetype version of Monster Reborn, like Trickstar Reincarnation, you can like chain it with this card, banish the monster. That way they waste their card pretty much. And speaking of which, 1 copy of Foolish Burial. It's like the magic version, guys, of Armageddon Knight and Dark Grepher. All of your cards near enough like to be in the graveyard, or most of them like to be in the grave, so it just gives you extra plays. Then we're running a little bit of spice, and that is the Mass Change 2. So you discard 1 card, target 1 face-up on the 1 monster on the field that has a level, and then we get Specialman Darklaw from our extra deck. The downside being, the monster has to be a level that's lower than Darklaw's. So since Darklaw is level 6, you can't use it with like Nightmare, Orcust Nightmare, or any of your level 8s. It has to be one of your Brass Bombard, your Skeleton, or one of your level 4 monsters. And then you can get Special Summon out Darklaw, which again, Darklaw can pretty much like seal the deal on his own because he has some powerful effects. 1 copy of 1-for-1 simply because Brass Bombard, being a level 1 monster, gets it on the field, and again, a lot of your cards, such as for instance if you want to get Druid onto the grave, it's a great way to get a monster into the graveyard. Got that 1 copy of Orcust Babble. It's the field spell. It's searchable with Galatea because it has Orcust in its name, and this gives your Orcust monsters and Link monsters, basically Galatea as well, have basically their effects become quick effects. So you can activate, so you could resurrect a monster during your opponent's turn, you could power up your monster with Nightmare or with Orcust Nightmare during your opponent's turn. Absolutely fantastic. And it also has a graveyard effect where you can discard 1 card, or send 1 card in your hand to the grave, and then you get to add this card back to your hand. So again, if you want to get that key card in your grave, it's absolutely ideal. 2 copies of Orchestrated Return. It's like a monster. It's like the trade-in just for the Orcust card. So you can send an Orcust or World Legacy like World Wand to the graveyard, or from your hand or face from the field to the grave, and you get to draw 2 cards. Pretty nice, helps you search out your deck, and again it is searchable with Galatea. Now 1 copy of Reinforcement of the Army because this searches out Armageddon Knight or Dark Grepher, whichever one you need. And then 2 copies of Trading because again a lot of your Gimmick Puppet cards are level 8s, and Gizmek is also level 8, and he doesn't care if he's in your hand or graveyard. So this is a great target for Gizmek, and just getting your cards in the grave should you need it. And then 2 copies of Orcust Crescendio, or is it? Yeah, Crescendio. It's like playing Harry Potter. This card is a Omni Negate should you have Galatea in play, because she's the only Orcust link we're running. If your opponent activates a spell, trap, or monster effect, you can negate the effect and then banish the card, which is actually pretty key because a lot of cards like to be in the grave, but by banishing, it gets rid of it. And also it has a graveyard effect where you can remove it from play to add any Dark Machine, near enough all of our cards apart from the 2 Warriors and Nibiru, and add it to your hand. Any downside is if you do so, it does lock you into special summoning Dark Machines, but you do have a lot of Dark Machines to go into. And that's it for the deck, guys. On to the extra deck. We are running 1 copy of Masked Hero Darklaw. Touch this up with the Mass Change 2 because it's such a great card. So any card sent to the graveyard is banished instead, and cards like Effect Veiler can only activate her effect should it go to the graveyard. So Darklaw shuts down Effect Veiler. It's literally as easy as that, really. And also, should your opponent add a card from their deck to the hand outside the draw phase, you can banish 1 card from your opponent's hand at random. So again, it kind of limits their options, and it's all summoned with a simple Mass Change 2. We've got 2 copies of Dingirsu. Dingirsu is a great level 8 monster to go into, and you can also summon him very easily off Galatea because You can summon out Dingirsu by Exceed summoning an Orcust Link monster, which is actually a pretty nice effect. He's a dark machine, so even if you did summon the Gimmick Puppet Exceed monster, you can still summon out Dingirsu. His effects are as follows. Upon being summoned, you can either send one card your opponent controls to the grave, and that isn't targetable. It doesn't target or anything like that. It doesn't target, it doesn't destroy, it just sends. Great, gets over lots of pesky monsters. Also, you can attach a banished machine monster and attach it to this card, including your Gimmick Puppets because they are machines. And should a monster on your field be destroyed by a battle or by a card effect, you can attach upon Exceeds material, negate that destruction. That affects not once per turn, so if you have 3 overlay units on it and your opponent tries to destroy your monsters 3 times, you can still have them on the field just by sending them to the graveyard. Now, I'm running a Numeron Dragon kind of package because whenever I think of level 8 monsters, I automatically go to Dragubon, which automatically equals Numeron Dragon. So Numeron Dragon is, in my opinion, one of the most powerful rank 1s or ranks in the game, guys, because you can use one overlay unit and he will gain 1,000 attack points for each rank on the field. So if you summon him through Dragobon, he will have a minimum of 9,000 attack points, which is enough in most cases to seal out games. If you have another monster, it'd be like 17,000. So really great, guys. And then on to some Gimmick Puppets. We are running number 15, Gimmick Puppet Giant Grinder. I only go into this should I really need to, because his effect is you can target one monster that's special summoned on your opponent's side of the field and destroy it. You can play that effect twice per turn, so you basically can destroy like 2 monsters each turn, or 2 special summon monsters, should say, each turn, which is pretty nice. And should they be Exceeds monsters, you inflict damage to your opponent equal to their attack, which is pretty nice. It's just that if I, for instance, have, like, if your opponent has like only 1 monster in play and you can get over them with instead of destroying them, I tend to go for Dingirsu, because Dingirsu can also get rid of 1 monster and it has more attack points than Giant Grinder. So that's why I kind of favour Dingirsu over Giant Grinder, but it's still nice to be there if you want to destroy more than 1 monster. And then we've got Hope Harbinger, Titanic Galaxy. Hope Harbinger is a great level 8 or rank 8 to go into. Again, you can go into it except from Druidal, and its effect is when your opponent activates a spell card, negate it, attach it to Hope Harbinger as an overlay unit. You can only do that once per turn, please. Once per turn, but it's still a nice effect to to disrupt your opponent's plays. And then finally we've got that number 40 Gimmick Puppet of Strings. I like this card because, again, it's a rank 8. You can use it going to Druidal because it's a Gimmick Puppet monster, and it just gives. And I like to go in this when I'm pushing for damage because, again, it's got more power than Dingirsu, like by more attack points. It can deal burn damage because you use one overlay unit, put a string counter on every single monster on the field, and then during the end phase of the opponent's next turn, it destroys every monster on the field that has a string counter and deals 500 points of damage. So it can do some burn damage should you need to. And then finally we've got number 97, Dragubon. So Dragubon, guys, is 2 level 8s. Again, you just go into it with your monsters apart from Druidal, and then it can't be targeted by card effects, really great. Then you can either target, you have to target 2 number Exceeds monsters. So you can either target Hope Harbinger or Numeron Dragon. You special summon one and you attach the other one as a Exceeds material. So you can special summon Hope Harbinger and attach Numeron Dragon to it. Or if you don't fancy that one, go for the OTK. You can special summon out Numeron Dragon and attach Hope Harbinger to it as an overlay. So pick your poison, really. And then we are running some links, guys. We're all running 2 copies of Galatea. Absolutely great. You need 2 monsters with that. One of them has to be an Orcust, which is actually pretty easy because, again, your Gimmick Puppets actually help you to special summon themselves. So you could just special summon a Gimmick Puppet plus 1 Orcust going to Galatea. Galatea can't be destroyed by battle if a monster is next to her link. So if you have Galatea, then Dingirsu next to her, Galatea can't be destroyed by battle, and Dingirsu is protecting her from being destroyed by card effects. So kind of Galatea has a lot of protection. And her effect is you can target one of your banished machines, that does include all of your Gimmick Puppets because they are machines as well, and set an Orcust spell or trap from your deck. The only downside is if you do set Orcust Crescendo, You won't be able to activate it until your opponent's turn, but it's just great to set up that crescendo to disrupt your opponent's play. And then we are running one copy of Gimmick Puppet Chimera Doll. You need 2 machine monsters. We have easily fulfilled that requirement. And during your main phase, you can lock yourself into only summoning Xyz machines, so please bear that in mind. But you get to add a Gimmick Puppet from your deck to your hand, or send it to the graveyard. But if you only control Gimmick Puppet monsters, so if this is the only card in your field, or if you have this and another Gimmick Puppet, you can special summon any Gimmick Puppet from your hand. So it can be used for that way. I just tend to go into this if I want to link climb, but I can also, like, if I want, like, just go into this, send a Druid Doll to the grave, resurrect the Druid Doll, or like stuff like that. That's the main reason why you would do it. Or you could just like go into this, get into that Biscuit Doll, summon it. If you've got that Magnet Doll in your hand, special summon it. Boom, go into like Dingirsu, because Dingirsu is a Xyz machine, so it does get around Chimera Doll's effect. We are running that one copy of IP Masquerena simply because it's a great monster to go into Avimax during your opponent's turn on your Link 2 monsters. Also, you can go into the Unicorn play with it. So, during your opponent's turn, or during the main phase I should say, you can Link summon during your opponent's turn, which is pretty nice. And any monster that uses Masquerena cannot be destroyed by card effects. It actually gives them a bit more protection. So for Nightmare Unicorn, if it's Link summoned, you discard a card, bounce one card on the field back into the deck. Pretty nice. Again, if you can Link summon this during your opponent's turn with IP Masquerena, and then you can just disrupt. It gives you another disruption on top of what you've already got, and it's just. And again, it won't be destroyed by card effects because you use Masquerena. Again, like I said, that we've got that one copy of Link Karibo because, again, if you've only got Brass Bombard and another Orcust in hand, you can just summon out the Brass Bombard, go into Link Karibo, play Brass Bombard's effect, special summon the Orcust. So at least then you can still go into Galatea, or you could go into like Masquerena. And then we've got one copy of Mech Knight Crusader Avimax. It's another beat stick to go into should you need it. So you need 2 monsters from the extra deck, basically Galatea and like a Link 2 monster, something like that. When this card is Link summoned, it can't be targeted by card effects. If you used Masquerena, it then can't be targeted by card effects or destroyed by card effects. So it's got a lot of protection. And if it battles a special summon monster, it gains that monster's attack point. So the only out to it, if you use Masquerena, would be a card that doesn't target, like Dingirsu or like Stormy Mirror Force, a Kaiju, because that sacrifices the monster, or like a Cyber Dragon or like a Cyber Dragon card, because then you can like fusion summon into Mega Fleet. And should your opponent do any of those things, you can target one card in the field, shuffle it into the deck like a Unicorn effect. So that's pretty nice. And that's it for the deck, guys. I actually enjoyed playing this. It's like a different take for Gimmick Puppets, because whichever one I tried to make, it was just slow, it was unplayable, it was bricky, and I try and make decks as best I can, and I just thought this would be a different take for Gimmick Puppets. It's because, like, yeah, you do use the Orcust cards a lot, but you still use Gimmick Puppets to extend your plays, and either just Link Climb or go into Xyz, really. And that's it for the deck, guys. If you like this deck, hit that thumbs up and maybe consider subscribing. Everyone helps out the channel grow. Do stay tuned for the replays, and maybe stay tuned for the next deck, because we are going to make one pretty soon. So wherever you are in the world, guys, take care and goodbye.